But it's so good to be here again. And we're going to have a very interesting conversation. It's one that needs to be had. There are other groups having similar conversations, but you know what to expect when you come into the cafe. It's going to be wholesome. It's going to be fair. It's going to allow you to think about what you're thinking about. It's going to allow you to hopefully make some decisions rather than feeling forced or coerced or convinced to do something against your wishes. So at least at the end of today's session, you'll have some more information at the very least to equip you to add to your raison d'etre of thoughts, and hopefully then you can make some more intelligent decisions. I want to welcome all of the first-time visitors to the cafe. It's a safe space. We have conversations. There are a number, especially on today's topic, there are a number of disclaimers that we will put out up front. First off, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not one of those clever guys who understands the pulmonary system. I'm not that person. And actually, neither is our guest speaker, but we will get into that. There are others in this room who are GPs, and even then there's levels of expertise that's required to even fully understand the vaccine. If we all could understand it, we'd all make one, right? So there's a lot of conversations that need to be had in here today. I'm going to ask us, I don't really need to say this because I know you all know how to behave, but let's respect each other's thoughts. Let's not shout anyone down. It's never happened in the cafe, and I don't anticipate it happening tonight. But it's an important subject, and I know it's close to many of your hearts and minds, and it's coming to that point where a decision soon has to be made. So 41% of those in this room say they're unlikely to take the vaccine, which is almost 1 in 2. So we've got to try and find out why. And there are a number of reasons that may cause us to feel skeptical. The way we've been treated in the past, the speed of launch of these vaccines, which normally take a lot longer to, be approved. We're going to have some questions, but let me first introduce you to my special guest. He's our special guest, but he's a friend. He's a good friend. He's an award-winning lawyer. He's had cases against the police which are of national significance and has won. And also he's a medical lawyer. And so he kind of understands the side that many of us get frustrated about and we don't know how to articulate. But let me introduce you to Terence Channer, and he can tell you a bit more about himself. So can we do what we do best and give him a big welcome, some hand claps in anticipation for what he's going to share with us today?
Welcome, everyone. Great to see so many lovely faces, all cheerful, even though we're on a lockdown again. I want to make it absolutely clear to you, I'm a healthcare lawyer. I bring claims mainly against the NHS and GPs, and I'm public enemy number one to a lot of people because of the work I do. But the work that I do does give me an insight into healthcare and healthcare standards. And I have a particular interest in the concerns that the Black community have in terms of inequalities in healthcare. So I'm not just a litigator, I'm also an advocate for redressing racial inequalities in healthcare. So making it absolutely clear to you, I'm not medically trained. So I think Mike made that absolutely clear. And so I'm not going to be giving any expert evidence or expert views on or opinions on medical matters or matters to do with immunology, etc., because I'm simply not qualified. But what I'd like to do today is, I'm sure many of you have joined, these Zoom conferences are proliferating left, right, and center. Every night there is a separate one to do with should you take the vaccine. And a lot of the ones that I've actually either engaged in or I have been a viewer have centered on Black hesitancy. So do excuse me if I talk a lot about the Black community. And I know that I think there's a majority, some of them haven't got your cameras on, but I see that the majority are from the Black and minority ethnic communities. And so what I'd like to do is obviously start with the stats that you probably all know. And those statistics show that for Black people, we know that Black people are disproportionately affected by COVID-19. I mean, the Office for National Statistics confirms that in terms of the mortality rate, Black African or Black Caribbean ethnic people are 2.7 times or thereabouts more likely to die from COVID-19 than white people. So what you've got is you've got what we already know, which is the high mortality rate in terms of the Black and minority ethnic communities. But then you have a double whammy, which is this. This is the double whammy, isn't it? On the one front, you've got the disproportionate effect that COVID-19 has had on the Black community and the BAME community. I'm always looking for a better word than BAME, so please excuse me if I use the word BAME. I don't particularly like it, but it's what we have. If someone's got a better phrase, let me know. So we've got the double whammy of the BAME community being affected disproportionately by COVID-19. And then you've got the high hesitancy rate amongst the BAME community, and particularly the Black community, 72%. So our poll tonight is 41%. The SAGE, which is the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, their studies, they concluded after they did a poll and a survey that 72% of Black people, and this blew my mind, 72% of Black people have said no, we're not going to take the vaccine, we're not going to take the jab. And I have personal experience with that because when I'm sure some of you have had the chat with mum and dad. I had the chat with mum and dad, and this seemed to be replicated in marriages, particularly, or where you have a husband and wife, or you have a man and a male and a female in a partnership. My dad, no problem, he's taking it. My mom, wow, that was a conversation that literally, the conversation with my mom was the most difficult conversation I have ever had with my mom from the time I became an adult. I remember having difficult conversations with her when I was a boy, and I'd get a good telling off and go straight to your bed. But I'm not a boy anymore, so my mom couldn't do that. And she accused me of browbeating her. She said, "You're brow," and I just couldn't believe I was having, my mom is my hero. My dad is my hero. My mom is my hero. They're heroes. They are amazing people who have done amazing things. And I'm sure a lot of you in the house will testify to the fact that our parents who have come maybe from the Indian continent or Africa or the Caribbean, and even those parents that you had from who are indigenous, white people, your parents, we can share that our parents have had this, a lot of us will say that our parents have had this amazing effect on our lives, and we look up to them. And in my for me, it's reverence. I revere them. And to find that I was, and I say this to you now, and I'm ashamed to say this, I actually raised my voice when I spoke to my mom. I raised my voice could not believe that in all my adult life, it's never happened. First time I raised my voice to my mom, she accused me of browbeating her. And later on in the conversation, I became tearful. The whole COVID-19 vaccination discussion is not like, shall we change the furniture? Shall we have a, shall we redecorate? It's not that type of conversation. It is hugely emotive, and it is splitting families. So yesterday I had a conversation with, I was on a Zoom with Professor Donald Palmer, Dawn Butler. I wasn't a guest. I literally, because Donald Palmer is a colleague of mine, a teammate, would you say, in the Black Healthcare Group. We're teammates with me, Donald, Dr. Donald, Professor Donald Palmer, and Dr. Jackie McLeod. Some of you might know her, GP. So we are three passionate pro-vaxxers. We are. I make no bones about saying I am pro-vaccination. So I was in a Zoom with and Dawn Butler and Professor Donald Palmer, Associate Professor of Immunology, was on the panel, and it was it's a hugely contentious discussion, bordering on, well, you're getting rude now. Some of the comments, you're now getting rude, which is why I applaud you for saying at the very beginning, let us be respectful. My mom might disagree. My mom might say, well, actually, Terence, the way you spoke to me the other day, I said, Mom, it's love. It's love. I love you so much. You've got diabetes. You've got underlying health issues. You're 80 years old. This thing could take you. I cannot. No, people tell me, oh, you can't tell your parents to take the vaccine. I'm like, no, yeah, I can. I can't force them. I can tell them. And that's one of the questions tonight. Can you force on someone to take the vaccine? Of course you can't. Of course, there isn't a mandatory vaccination, and our GP, resident GP, will concur with that. I can't force my mom to take the vaccine, but there's no way my mom's going to be taken from me without me fighting. I make no bones about it, and I'm not ashamed of it. A tear rolled down my cheek. It was this cheek, not this one. It wasn't that bad. It was just the one cheek. The tear rolled down the cheek during the discussion, and I'm glad my mom couldn't see me, because it was a phone call. And I said, Mom, this, and she was so hesitant. And 41% of you in the house are hesitant. In fact, it's not, I suppose it's not even hesitant. Some of you have probably just made your mind, I'm not going to have it. That isn't hesitant. That's a point blank no. Anyway, lo and behold, fast forward the story. I left it at that, and I said, well, you know what? I can't, I'm not going to revisit this, because it was so painful. It was so emotional. Wow. And I thought, I'm going to leave this. It's in God's hands. I can't do any more than that. I've literally raised, that's absolutely, as we say in Jamaica, you're feisty. I was literally feisty, as we would say. But it was love. It was an urgency of, I don't want to lose you, Mom. You've got all these health conditions. I think this thing will wipe you out. And I made no bones about it. I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I think this thing could wipe Mom out. And he didn't say to me, Terence, you can't say that to your mom. He said, you need to tell her that. My dad said to me when I said, it can wipe my mom out, he said, you need to tell her exactly that. Don't mince your words. Just tell her exactly what you told me. But anyway, fast forward, Mom and Dad got their jabs. I got a message from my dad, just out of the blue. Let me see if I can find it. It was a WhatsApp message. Yeah, my parents are up to date with tech. My mum sends me she knows every single emoji, and she sends me a greeting every day, telling me how much the Lord is looking after me and will protect me. She's a woman of God. And I think part of her misgiving was, and we will touch on this today, was the theological side of things. What in the vaccine? Does it contain fetal cells? And we had to reassure her that it didn't. So the message I got from my dad was, I have news for you, Terence. Your mum decided to have the vaccine. This was the 13th of January. Byron will be taking us to Birmingham on Saturday to get it. Every blessing. And I just sent the prayer hands that said, and that was it. So what we have is this hesitancy that is right at the doorstep, right in our homes. So you'll find, I heard this was on, was it LBC? I think it was James O'Brien. It was this week, I think it was. I don't know if any of you heard that, but one chap, black guy, called in and said he will be taking the vaccine, his wife won't. And when asked what the reason was, because James O'Brien was completely, I don't understand any of this. I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening in the black community. What's going on? I don't understand. So James O'Brien was his usual, incredulous, I can't believe what's going on self. And this chap said, well, my wife won't take it because she said that God will protect her. Same thing my mom said, God will protect her. She believes that God will protect her. So when I was asked to comment in the piece in The Guardian on black hesitancy, I made it quite clear that my view, based on anecdotal experience and personal experience, etc., and talking to people, was that the reason why there was black hesitancy and there was vaccine hesitancy in the black community was a mix of, in my opinion, of a race, or the intersection of race and religion, i.e. faith. Of course, you've got lots of conspiracy theories knocking about on WhatsApp. And I think my mum was a victim of just the confusion of the avalanche, the preponderance of videos, left, right, and center, hitting you from every angle. And she when I asked I said, my mum, what is the reason why? This is before she changed her mind. I said, do you believe that your temple, i.e., as a Christian, do you believe that your temple will be violated by the vaccine? My mum couldn't answer me. This was the first time in my entire life when I asked my mum a question, she could not answer me. You can imagine all these decades with all this reverence, and it came to a simple question, what's the reason? My mum couldn't really answer. She didn't have an answer. She just said, and what I say to, on the issue of racism, what I say to people is this, because we can explore this a bit more, is that I refuse to be overly critical, and sometimes even just I refuse point blank to be critical of black people for being hesitant, because I understand the history of distrust. Healthcare has, unfortunately, in the black community, healthcare has got a reputation that really does leave a lot to be desired, particularly in respect of racism. So I'll give you a good example. Most of you know this, but I'll give you the stats. Simple issue of maternity care. And let's wait for Tuskegee. Let's come back to Tuskegee. But maternity care. 7 out of 100,000 white pregnant women die in childbirth. 38 out of 100,000 black women die in childbirth. That statistic, that is a stark statistic. And it's not as if this is just confined to healthcare. I think black people in general have a distrust of the system. So from stop and search, to the over-regulation of doctors, to the over-policing of lawyers, to school exclusions. Everywhere you look around, and that's why I say to people, stop looking at individual cases. Stop looking at individual cases and saying, oh, it's not racism. It could have been something else. I'm a stats man. And that's one of my mantras. I'm a stats man. Just give me the stats. Give me the stats on stop and search. Give me the stats on deaths in custody. Give me the stats on maternity care. Give me the stats on school exclusions. Give me the stats on how many black doctors are disciplined in proportion. Give me the stats, ironically, on how many police officers who are black are disciplined. And the figures are the same across the board. So when black people say, sorry, we don't trust the system, who am I to say, you're wrong? Everywhere you look, sorry, I'm being pessimistic, but I'm only quoting government statistics. The figures from the police are the police statistics. If you go to the SRA, who regulates solicitors, it's their stats. Over-policed. Black doctors, over-policed. Black police officers, over-policed. Black women, it's like a risk. It's like if you're black and you're pregnant, it's a higher risk of dying in childbirth. And then you start looking at things like Tuskegee. What the heck happened there? How is it that a government can sponsor black people, black men being injected with syphilis? To the point that President Clinton had to apologize in public. If you haven't seen that apology, go on YouTube and have a look. So, yes, I'm pro-vaccination, but do I understand the concerns of the black community? 100% I understand the concerns of the black community. And it's for us to start not with saying, what's wrong with you? But to say, I understand where the pain started. I, number one, will start by saying, I understand where the pain began. And after I say that, I will say, well, look, we understand there's pain. Pain, distrust, hesitancy. How do we approach this issue, which is a life and death issue? Sean Grant was buried today. Sean Grant is my age. Sean Grant played the saxophone in church like I play the guitar. I play my guitar every day. And occasionally I upload onto YouTube and LinkedIn, because we're musicians. Church of God, Mike Kelly, you will testify to the fact that this is our background. Sean was buried today. What did Sean die of? COVID-19. And yes, there will be detractors saying, well, how do you know it's COVID-19? He could have died. I mean, I've heard that one before. He could have died of something else. Everything's COVID-19 now. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the trends over 5 years, the death rate over 5 years, you see a steady rate and then you see a spike. And that spike is either war or pandemic. There ain't no other explanation for that jump in the death rate, the mortality. So we know that COVID-19 is killing people. And we know that COVID-19 is killing black people disproportionately. So 6th of January, we had Patrick Bryan, Church of God, around my age, died, COVID. We had Sean Grant, Church of God, my age, COVID. We had, and this is from the 6th of January now, in the space of about a week. We have my friend Julian Octave's sister-in-law died, COVID. And then we had a sister from our church who died, and her and her husband died. I know that we have COVID there as well. So the double whammy is Black hesitancy and disproportionate mortality. We actually also contract the virus disproportionately. And there is talk of, well, it's structural racism. We're frontline workers, we're more exposed. I mean, the jury is still out as to exactly why we are disproportionately affected by COVID-19. But the fact remains that the death toll is the death toll. The question is this: how do we deal with that in terms of a vaccine? What do we do? What is our responsibility to, and this isn't me on my high horse preaching to everybody. We have to look at our responsibilities. But I'm going to stress once again, I'm stressing once again that, look, the determining factor, I'm going to say it's so obvious, but the determining factor when you look at the figures for white hesitancy and Black hesitancy is that white and Black. It's ethnicity, it's skin color. So what is it that has affected Black people and people from the Indian subcontinent? What is in Africa? What is it that has affected our people? Excuse the term, people of color. Again, I don't like it, but I'm trying to find phrases for us. What is it that has affected us that's engendered distrust that white people aren't experiencing? There's something. And it's more acute with, so it seems to me, if you look at how racism plays out in this country, it's almost like a South African apartheid type color scheme. Whereas you've got those who feel more aggrieved tend to be the people with a darker skin color. So you've got the more aggrieved saying no, 72%. And then as you come up, you've got the less aggrieved, but they're still aggrieved, who are Indian, Pakistani, still showing high levels of hesitancy compared to white people. So it seems to me there's a correlation between grievances and hesitancy. And then when you add to that theology, because frankly, it is a complex picture, but I think fundamentally, as I said in my contribution to The Guardian, that I think it's the intersection of race and religion, race and faith. So you have the Muslim community as well, expressing concerns. So I just wanted to drop that out there and say, look, number one, I'm not going to slag anyone off for being hesitant, because once bitten, twice shy. It's a bit like the old white lady who gets mugged by a Black guy. And then I approach her to help her cross the road with the shopping, and she runs away because she has this thing in her head that Black men are dangerous. And I'm there to help, and she runs. Instead of running into my arms where I can help and shield her, she runs into the road and gets knocked down. That is the analogy that I'm painting in respect of Black hesitancy. And I will get, pilloried, and I've been called all sorts for and this is the other thing. I mean, the same man who said, my wife said that God will protect her. He said to James O'Brien on LBC, my wife said that God will protect her. He said, I am so reluctant to go into any room, any black space, and say, I am going to take the vaccine. You've had Elton John come out yesterday or the day before to say, yes, I'm taking the vaccine. But to date, if you Google black celebs and vaccine, it takes you to America. Yes, the black politicians, the MPs have come out, but in terms of, the likes of Stormzy and the likes, and I get it, I understand. And the other issue is clearly you've got lots of these Zooms just everywhere, and about should we take the vaccine? And I don't think I've seen a white one yet. So I mean, they're probably out there, but I'm yet to see a white one where it's white people saying should we take the vaccine? But in the black community, I suppose it reflects the concerns. And I keep stressing, I am not going to slag anyone off. I think what we have to do is we have to really examine this thing and ask. I mean, I know the fundamental questions are, were the trials representative enough of black people? Now, my understanding is that they were, but I've got a very good friend who is an investigator in America. And I asked him, and I'm going to ask him again just to make sure, but my understanding is that the trials were representative enough of black people. But this level of distrust in the black community is something that needs to be looked at really carefully. I said that what we need to do is to engender confidence in the process. I said in my contribution to The Guardian, and I called on the government, I said, look, what we need to do is blacken the whole process for black people. Have a black task force that from top to toe, from head to toe rather, have a black task force that has oversight of the process and vaccination centers manned by black clinicians. I believe that may not answer the entire question, but I believe that would go some way. You're going to get detractors. I've been accused of being paid by the government. I've been, all sorts of things have been said. I'm ignorant. Oh, you're paid by the government. How much have they paid you? So you will always get those detractors who will maintain their position regardless of the evidence. And I must say, I'm looking more at the waverers, those who are not sure, those who are like, well, I need some reassurance that this vaccine is not going to implant some mind altering or DNA altering chip in me, or affect my DNA, or make me lose my salvation, make me go to hell, or it's the mark of the beast. So I just that's these are my thoughts. I'm rambling on a lot, but from the heart, these are a lot of my thoughts from the heart, that I believe that the next step, I know we've got the Race and Health Observatory, and I think they're going to do a good job, but even the Race and Health Observatory, there are hardcore people in the community that will look at the Race and Health Observatory and say, they're just part of the government, man. They're just, they're just part of the government. And the thing is, you cannot persuade everyone. I'm pro-vaccination. It's the waverers that I have got in my crosshairs in terms of trying to, Well, yeah, persuade, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not pro-vaccination.
Right. So Terence, thank you. I mean, you've raised such important points in that conversation, and I know there's a number of questions that have been raised in the chat, and some of them I think you can answer, and I would like. Let me just pull up my. There's a few questions. Simple ones like there's the Pfizer, the AstraZeneca, and there's the Moderna vaccines. There's those three, but apparently there's 23 on trial at the moment. And do we have a choice over what vaccine we can take, or is it what's been assigned for your region? Can we say yes or no?
My understanding is that you do not get a choice of the vaccine that you are given. You don't get to pick and choose.
Okay.
Otherwise, the system would collapse. It would be chaos. So you don't get to say, I want Moderna or I want the biotech Pfizer. You are simply given what you get. Now, I'm going to stress again, I'm not an expert in vaccination. I'm not a medic. I'm not a clinician. But my understanding is that you are given what you get. You don't get a choice.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Terence. I want to widen this up. We've got 20 minutes, and there's some real key points that we must still touch on. So, Raf, can I go to you first? Your hand is up. Please do go ahead. We're going to keep this succinct now so we can get as much questions and answers in as possible.
Look, just to add on to what Terence just said there, and Terence, I follow you on LinkedIn, so you're doing a good job. I attend as many of these Zoom or debates as I can, and there was one debate where a doctor said that, like you said correctly, Mike, you don't get a choice in which vaccine you get, but if he had a patient that showed a preference to one or the other, he would try to work it out for them. So I would say, if you have a preference, speak to your doctor.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Raf. I'm going to ask a question that was posed by Councillor. Unless you want to answer it, Councillor, really quickly. You were talking about having, let's see, the best one of the ones you posed, vaccine passports. And whilst we may say, look, I'm abstaining from the vaccine, does that then restrict us going forward in life? You're going to be second guessed at border control. You may work for a company that says, actually, you've not taken the vaccine, we can't employ you. So it goes into employment law, it goes into your civil rights, etc. In a nutshell, Terence, what's your thoughts on vaccine passports?
Vaccine passports, that is a very, very, very important question. It's crucial right now for us. I can tell you what you probably already know in terms of the vaccine minister, Nadeem Zahawi. He came out just, I think it was 2 days ago, saying he's not advocating vaccine passports. Now, I've talked a lot about vaccine passports in the recent past. And my view is that there is an inevitability about vaccine passports, but the extent to which, in terms of how extensive they're going to be, is another matter, because vaccine passports are a hugely contentious issue. Now, I guess we can all see it for international travel. And very much, I can see, Qantas came out saying that they are looking to have vaccine passports for travel. So I can see that happening. Now, the World Health Organization has come out saying they're not keen on vaccine passports as yet, but I can see certainly international travel moving towards some form of vaccine passport, because international travel already has immunization certificates for travel in certain regions of the world already. So I can see vaccine passports being a key feature in international travel moving forward. And in fact, the airlines and the global economy probably want it because they want international travel to resume. Now, it's a different question when it comes to accessing goods and services and your place of work. Now, I don't do employment law, but quite clearly, any mandatory requirement for a vaccine certificate for work is going to lead potentially to legal challenge. So you've got some of you in the public sector and some of you in the private sector. And obviously in the public sector, anything in the public sector is subject to a judicial review challenge. A lot of you probably are aware of judicial review challenges. The private sector, you don't get that, but you've got the Equality Act. Could you object on the grounds of a protected characteristic and fall under the protection of the Equality Act 2010? It's left to be seen. It really is left to be seen. But it may be the case that employers are going to be fairly agnostic about it. My understanding is that from reading around and so, that employers were like, well, you need to be vaccinated. But then when they took legal advice on what the potential challenges would be, so for instance, constructive dismissal, if your employer said you've got to take the you need a vaccine certificate to come to work, well, you're not coming to work. That's potential grounds for a constructive dismissal. I know that Pimlico plumbers have they've made it mandatory. And they came out a few weeks ago, I think it was. So if you want to Google Pimlico plumbers, they made a statement saying, look, all our employees, all our heating engineers who are going to go into your homes. And what's really funny about that is that if a heating engineer came into my home and he had a vaccine certificate, I'd be happy. I'd be like, yes, he's got a vaccine certificate. He could still be carrying COVID into my house, but if he's not heavily infected, he could just have it on his gloves or he could brush it off. So it's a dilemma. I'd like to know that anyone around me is vaccinated. I would like to know that. So I suppose the answer to the question, sorry I'm taking so long, is that we have to simply wait and see what happens, particularly in respect of potential legal challenges in respect of vaccine certificates, because it's bound to happen. I mean, I know that this is a slightly different question. Slightly different subject. I know that what we've got is a case recently. This is a case of, and it's a slightly off subject, but you get the gist anyway. A case of a woman with dementia. This is a court of protection case. So court of protection deals with protected parties, people who don't have mental capacity to look after their health, well-being and affairs. And her son objected to her having the vaccine, said, look, she's a woman of faith, she's a Christian woman, this, that and the other. And my mom, she wouldn't want to have the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine. And in that case, now I am slightly off, but it is important to hear this. In that case, the court came to the conclusion that, look, she's had the flu vaccine before. She's had swine flu vaccine before. She's not in a fit mental state to make her own decisions. And the court ordered, yes, she will have the vaccine. So it's not forced treatment, but it's a court order, isn't it? A court of protection order saying you must be vaccinated. Sorry, Mike, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I was going to come on to that subject, Terence. I'm just trying to keep within the parameters. What about those who are mentally ill? Those you've just mentioned it for dementia. Yeah. But what about those who are what we would affectionately say was care in the community, who are not necessarily able to conscientiously build an answer to why I'm taking it. I mean, and let's say it's your brother or your partner or cousin, and you're in charge.
Okay.
Your wife. Do they have a say?
Sure. Okay. Now, under the law, if you lack mental capacity, and I think most of you know this, if you lack mental capacity to make decisions, and remember it's issue specific. It's not a blanket, and the GP in the house will confirm that. It's not a blanket, you lack capacity. I've had clients that have lacked capacity to run legal cases, but they've got capacity to decide whether to take aspirin or to have an operation. So it's issue specific, and the specific issue is, does Jane have capacity to understand, to make an informed choice on taking the vaccine? That's something that is assessed medically. It's a clinical assessment under the Mental Health Act, or Mental Capacity Act rather. And if the answer is no, then it is a matter for the court of protection. If there is an argument, if, for instance, as in this case, her son said, my 80-year-old mother's not having the vaccine, it's then for the court of protection to say, well, actually, no, she will have the vaccine. We overrule you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Councillor Patrick, could we ask a very specific question? And Terence, if you could give us a specific answer because of time. And there's a few more questions we want to get in. So please go ahead, Councillor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think the thing is, right, about taking this vaccine that people's got a problem with, it's your choice. It's your personal choice. Now, I hear you touch on the lady that's not well or whether. I've got a wife that's not well. She's got Huntington's disease. Now, she doesn't talk. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't even watch the telly. She'd never taken the flu jab. And I did book a space for her to take the injection, but then I cancelled it because the Monday when she was supposed to go, it's far too cold for her to go out. She hasn't even been out 3-4 months. She hasn't been outside. So I stopped it. But I rang up her doctor in Adamsbrook Hospital and I asked him, he said, it was up to me. He never said, right, if he had said to me, no, Mr. Solomon, she has to have it, then she would. But he said it was up to me. And that means that if that medicine, whatever it is, because I've done the breakdown, I know what's all in all of them, because I've done my research, I know what's in every single vaccine. That's not my problem. The problem is when I rang her doctor, the doctor said to me, it was up to me. So whatever is happening in her body, the movements that she's got, whatever her problem is, if she takes this vaccine and it kills her, it's up to me. It's supposed to be a personal thing. We're not supposed to be forced into it. It's a personal thing. It's up to you if you want it. That's what I want. That's what I've been hearing from everybody.
Sure. What I would do, Councillor, is I'm going to send you this court of protection case because it is the first case, 20th of January 2021. If I can send you, tell you what I'll do. I'm going to send you a summary of the case. Can I put it in the chat?
Yes.
I put the link in the chat. Do have a look at this. I'm going to just have a look at this case. There you go. That's that's a summary of that case. It is where and I mean you no doubt seen cases where, and I've had one of these cases where it's been in the news where the parents of a child want to take an alternative route in respect to medical treatment, and the High Court has overruled the parents. Clearly, in that case, the child did not have capacity to make a decision. In fact, was just too young. And in the case of people with who lack mental capacity, such as patients with dementia, this is an area for the court of protection. So if I were you, I would read the summary of that case. You can actually read the whole case. There should be a case citation there, and satisfy yourself as to what the law actually says, because the law doesn't say it's up to the husband. The law doesn't say, generally speaking, it is up to you, so long as you act in your wife's best interests. If you're deemed to not be acting in her best interest in terms of health and well-being, then that's why we have courts. The court, as in this case, can step in.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just say to you, if you need to speak to me separately about this, give me a call. Michael will get you. In fact, I'll put my number in the chat. I don't mind you having my number.
Good. Thank you, Terence. There are some other interesting questions in the room, and thank you to Dr. Yusidi for posting the differences between the vaccines that have been approved. I can understand why some people are a bit hesitant, whether you're white, black, or whatever you are, and that's because of, as our dearly beloved former president of the US used to say, fake news. There's a lot of fake news and conspiracy theories out there, and they're tangibly appearing real. And the problem that many of us have is, if we go to do a bit of research, one of the first places we go to is Google.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily give us the bandwidth of information, and you know, a lot of it is censored. You know, you say the wrong thing, or you post something on Instagram, and all of a sudden it's scanned it. It knows you're talking about COVID and the vaccine, and what it doesn't like, it deletes. People post up stuff on YouTube. You could have a conversation, and the next day it's down. So, and let's say this. It seems that there's been a conflict between Sage and the government. Nick Hancock says one thing. Sage says, well, we've been saying that for 10 years, quote unquote. You know, and it just seems like, well, who do we believe? What should we be doing? Should Boris have locked us down in March for a year, like New Zealand? Would we be in a better position? Do we trust, as Terence said, the system? Do we trust the government? I'm not saying yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't. I'm saying let's find out some more information. Elaine, it's good to have you in the CAF tonight. Your hand is up. Please do pose a question.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Elaine.
It was really interesting, your talk tonight. Thank you for that. Now, I do have a little baby here that's super noisy. She's just come out of the bath, so if she does scream, pardon me. It's really interesting. The field of work I'm in is in relation to PPE and healthcare and so forth. So we do have a lot of links with the government in terms of our policy and what we provide for hospitals, etc. The interesting point is, you asked, why are we reluctant? We are aware of a lot of things that happened in Africa, Caribbean and so forth, to the testing of black people without their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The other issue that we're going through, just like Michelle Obama said in her book, she said there's a dull, depressing cloud that's over us on a daily basis. And I'll explain what that means. We wake up throughout the COVID, March, the end of March or April, any date, straight away, without being on Google or any internet searching, straight away we're bombarded with the BBC News, any news channel saying black people are more likely to this, black people don't have a garden, black people are the super spreaders. So can you imagine, just day by day, we're getting this assault, this mental assault from the media, which is uncensored in terms of what they're just after one race of people. That is quite a lot to be having to deal with on a daily basis. It's like, oh, what now? Oh, we don't have gardens. Oh, what now? Oh, we can't do this, we can't do that because we're the super spreaders. It's going to affect us more. Whereas a lot of us are in the service industry. So a lot of us were catching it a lot more than other races because of the line of work we're in London. So those statistics were off anyway to start with. So yes, there was a dull assault on us in terms of our race, because they put that out there from the start. That made us go, this is highly suspect. I don't have to go on Google. I don't have to go in any Zoom meetings to discuss it with anyone. I already felt assaulted and targeted. And I'm in this industry. I've spoken to government ministers. That's what we do. So I already felt they were after me like I was a target, maybe a mild target, but they kind of put me out there like, you should be the guinea pigs. You take it first. So that's why all the discussions I've had with all of my friends and family, black or white, we've got a mixture of everybody. That is the discussion we had, because we were just faced with that on a daily basis from the media, and it wasn't fair. So then at the end of it all, they're going, why don't you not want to take it? Don't understand. You got, come on, you people, get together, take the vaccine. Well, yeah, I'm going to be kind of hesitant. We know Bill Gates wants to wipe a lot of people out. That isn't even a conspiracy theory. He says it out of his own mouth. So that's what we're up against. So that is what we are facing. So if you want us to change that opinion to then go ahead into this vaccine, we've already got people saying there's too many of you on the planet. We've got the leader of the British History Museum saying, we tried to get rid of you, but you keep bouncing back. That's what we're up against. So yes, we have taken MMR and all these other vaccines. People take flu. This was so specific. And because of what we've witnessed in America, seeing someone die live on air, it was just too raw for us then just to turn around and go, I can't wait, let's queue up. So I think that is what it was, Terence. That's what, and as you know yourself, you spoke to your family, and we're professionals. We're all professionals. So we've got children. We know we should take it. We know we want to, but we're just like, I really don't want to.
Yes.
So sorry, Terence, I'm going to ask for, because we've literally gone over time and everyone's been kind enough to give me the extension. I want to just pose a few more questions and then you could give us a summary of thoughts. So, Elaine, thank you for your point, and it's well noted. One of the reasons that made me pause and contemplate a bit more about the vaccine was New Zealand. Now, when it comes to the industry of well-being, they are market leaders. They are very much on the trend or above the trend, ahead of the curve, from children's services to how they treat their people. Now, the Prime Minister, I cannot remember her name, which is great, a female Prime Minister, and her strategy was, first off, let's protect our borders. Everybody who deals with our borders needs to be vaccinated. Then she pushed for all of the frontline workers, first responders, police, ambulance, NHS or their equivalent. And then thirdly, she pushed for the teachers, then government officials. And it was like, if this vaccine's that bad, she's killed off the mainstay of her whole country, and the majority of them are not black. So it's a consideration to say, is it good enough for the goose, then it may be good enough for the gander. Just a consideration. It's just other countries are really pushing ahead, and they seem to be a bit more compliant. I'm not sure if Dr. Yesidi can talk to us, but if you can't, please just at least just give me a sense of what it's like in your practice. Is there a surge for people across the piece? Good evening, Doc. Is there a surge across the piece for people to take the vaccine, or is there hesitancy? And if so, do you understand why?
Thanks. First of all, I want to say thank you for putting this together, Mike, because I have been to a few conversations on COVID vaccines, but I would say this is one that I like this because it's a mix. Most of the ones I've been to have been with medical professionals, and it's nice to get the feel of what how people are feeling. And I really appreciate Elaine's comment, because I think that really got to me and almost brought a tear to my eye. Where I practice in Liverpool, majority of my patients are not from the BAME community. But from listening to this, I've actually written it down that I need to go back and get my receptionist to run a search of how many patients do we have, because I want to know what they are feeling. Most of the resistance I've had was from people from that community outside of my patient population. So friends, family, that sort of thing. And it's a mix for different reasons. But most of them have been down to all the fake news out there and is trying to dispel it. And a lot have been centered around God will protect us, which I find quite challenging because I'm a Christian as well, and trying to explain things. It is difficult, but to answer your question, within my practice population, not so much. We've had people ringing up for the vaccines, and we've run quite a few vaccination clinics for our practice and our network and wider society, and people have been, turning up for it. And I'd just like to say something to Councillor Patrick. If your wife isn't able to come out, you should be able to ask the GP if they can come to give her the vaccine. Because if she's housebound, and if you do decide that, that she wants to, then they should be able to offer that for you. And I don't want you to feel pressured that it's your decision. As long as you can explain it to your wife, if you can read out the leaflet to her, explain it to her, and she can communicate her understanding with you, and that can be demonstrated, then there shouldn't be any reason why it should be down to your choice. Because if they had to assess her capacity, that's what would be done. But if it is that she does decide to have it and she can't get there, then you are more than entitled, if she's housebound, for them to come to the house to give that to her. With the vaccine is something that is a bone of contention for our community. That's fact. And I think from what Terence has said is quite obvious. But my main encouragement is get information. And if after having all the information, the right sort of information, you still decide not to, then that is your choice. And I guess that's where the choice element comes from. But it's not having that information that's the issue. And the information, I know that there's a lot of history, and sometimes we can't help but look back at history. But also we need to stop and look forward and think, okay, history aside, how can I protect myself? How can I protect my loved ones? And for me, because I've had my vaccine, I was one of the people who were able to have the 2 doses because we got our vaccines quite early on when it first came out. And my choice was very much, and this is me being a typical wife, my husband was offered first, and we hadn't finished having our discussion at home. And he rang me, and he's like, he didn't even ring me before. He rang me after and said, "Yes, I've had it." And I thought, we haven't finished discussing. We haven't finished reading everything. Why would you do that? Yeah. But then I had to stop and say, okay, I trust him. He's a clever doctor. I haven't finished reading it. Do I want to wait till I've finished reading it? Or will I just, if he's done it, then fine. And I'll be honest, it was after I had my first one, I finally finished reading all the paperwork. But I felt convinced by the fact that someone I knew and trusted had done the work and taken that step. And I know for a lot of people, they might not be able to read through all the medical spiel and everything. But if there's anyone out there, I know that you might not know me or whatever, but if you're undecided, look for someone nearby that you know and trust that has had them, and listen to them and see what their reasoning was. And then go back and think, is that enough for you, or are you still on? And if you're still on, not sure, then it's okay to wait. But at least you've made the decision that's right for you, not based on what's on Facebook or what anyone else has said. Make the decision that's right for you and your family. History aside, what is right for you? And if that's my little 2 cents, I'd just like to add that. Thank you.
That's brilliant. And Doctor, just before you go, do we have to wait in the queue until we get this letter through our box that says you're invited to the vaccine, or can we buy it privately?
At the moment, the vaccine isn't available privately.
Okay.
You have to wait. In the UK, I don't know of any country where it's available privately. You have to wait. Okay. There was a question there about choice, and you don't have a choice. You can declare a preference, but it's down to the individual. So if, for instance, the practice that you're at, they happen to have Oxford and Pfizer or whichever one, then yes, you might, but it's at the moment, people are not, you can't get it privately, you can't choose. It depends on what's available in your area.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a quick question to the room. It's not a poll, it's just something to contemplate. Is anyone absolutely scared of taking the vaccine? You know, we might be disguising it as all the reasons why, whether it be fake news or whatever. Are you scared? And I don't need you to give me a reaction. I just want you to think about that. It's a big decision. If you're, Terence mentioned this earlier on, if you're flying to Nigeria, you have to take yellow fever vaccine. And you just take it. You know, certain countries you need malaria vaccines. And you just take it because you need to go to where you're going. Are you scared? And if so, perhaps these sort of conversations can reduce that fear element. Thank you so much, Dr. Yacidi. Brilliant advice. Wish you were a bit local. You'll be my GP. Fantastic. Thank you. David, I know you work in the NHS. Have you been offered your vaccine, David? Hopefully you can speak to us, David. Okay, whilst David's contemplating, just a quick show of hands. I know Dr. Yacidi has anyone else taken the vaccine in the room? Okay, brilliant, Trish. Okay, Nicole, I know you're a nurse, so you probably had to. Trish, can I ask you if you can talk to us for a sec, just to tell us what it was like? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Which is understandable. I mean, what did make you do it?
To be fair, I actually had the vaccine. I obviously didn't know an awful lot about it to start with, but I'm a support worker for 2 lads with autism. So I obviously got the vaccine due to the fact of the job that I do, which is quite strange to get it before a lot of people because I'm not in that age group or category. So that was quite strange that I've got it before vulnerable people. But also, you've spoke about the people who can't make the decisions for themselves, and the 2 lads that I look after have to have best interest meetings because they can't verbalise their understanding, don't know what COVID is, don't know the seriousness of COVID, but their families do. So yeah, it has.
Were you nervous when you took it, Trish?
To be fair, I was more not understanding whether you'd get side effects to it. Yeah.
I think that's a big concern for some people. I've heard people say, look, I'll let others jump in the queue first and we'll watch what happens when the full moon comes out and all sorts of stuff. But well done to you, Trish. Power to you. Are you well? There's no side effects?
No, I'm well. I'm just recovering from an operation, but from the vaccine itself, no, I'm fine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trish. And Dave, I'm glad you're back in. We've got 2 minutes. Dave, tell us, have you taken the vaccine?
I was afraid to take it, but I decided to take it anyway because of I don't want to travel abroad eventually. Obviously not now, but and I don't like. So it's kind of like if it would be up to me, like the plus I obviously like I also want like people like to feel secure and stuff. I was more afraid of the long-term side effects and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was my, and I spoke to some people about it, but then the problem is like you speak to some people and then some agree, some not. So it's like you kind of still in the middle.
Yes.
But then I said like, no, I'm going to take it when I go back to work eventually, and then which will be in 2 weeks, yeah, just to protect others, and also just because I just feel it will be also not forced on you, but might be required for certain things.
Yes, thank you, David. It's a delicate subject, and I'm hoping that today's conversation has at least prompted you to think, rather than just take information from these self-acclaimed subject matter experts who seem to know so much about the vaccine, which, like I said, they've got a little bit of information from a viral video. It's not enough this is important. You need to do the research. Terence has posted some stuff. Dr. Yasidi has posted some stuff. Please do click on those links, save them. I'm going to leave this chat open for a few minutes after we close. Yeah, I've already asked for an extension, so we're over time. I want you to come back next week. I don't want to abuse your time. I know it's bedtime for many of you, but it's an important subject, and we will keep our finger on the pulse and share that information with you as often as we can. I know Nicole did say you've taken the vaccine. Nicole, in 20 seconds, were there any side effects? Are you okay? And are you glad you took it?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm fine. No, I didn't have any side effect. I'm fine.
Brilliant.
Are
You glad you took it?
Sorry?
Are you glad you took it?
Yes, after being skeptical about taking it, yes, I'm glad because I am diabetic and I'm exposed at work and I've got my grandson, and so after getting my facts and yeah.
Well done. Very brave and well done. Very intelligent. You see, she's looking out for her offspring, her grandson, and those in her care. She's a nurse. She chose to do what's best for her. And I think that's the power of choice and availability. Sometimes you need to get off the BBC and really do some research. Some of the stuff is just recurring noise, and I think you need to go into, read a bit or listen to someone professional like a Dr. Yasidi or a trusted advisor. So Terence, I want to say thank you so much for at least opening this conversation tonight. No doubt we're going to be speaking again on this platform because there's going to be fallout. There's going to be risk. There's going to be upset, whether it be in employment or unable to travel. You're going to be a very busy man in this field, and especially that the vaccines have been, they've been protected against lawsuits. But so, ladies and gentlemen, can we please just be kind and give Terence a hand clap? And he's encouraged us. He's given us some information for us to think about. And I think Dr. Yasidi summarized what Terence said very carefully. History is history. But what are you going to do to protect your family and your loved ones today? I hope the relationship with your mother, Terence, has been restored. And thank you for sharing with us. Terence, leave us with just an encouraging word. And he's the last word, ladies and gentlemen. Terence? Please unmute. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you all. We all have challenges in life, and this is one of the big challenges that we will face, probably one of the biggest challenges that we are going to ever face in our lives. And we need to be prayerful, we need to be wise in our decisions. And I believe that we should look for trusted sources, people who you trust. We don't want you to be relying on fake news and having a lack of vision, because the word of God says, without vision, the people will perish. That's what I would leave you with.
All right. Everyone, have a peaceful night. Think well, live well, be kind to yourself, and then you can be kind to someone else. See you.